The Sports Time Podcast.
All right, I'm pleased to be joined from Mike from the Indy Fanatics podcast. How's it going, Mike?
It's going very well, JJ. Thanks for having me on. It was a kind of a bit of a last minute thing we've got together, but hey, really happy to kind of be on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to talk about a little about some Indy, especially Indy 500. I'm excited. It's been a crazy season, and you mentioned earlier 5 different winners in 5 different races. Are you a little surprised by that?
I think I'm more surprised by the guys who haven't won. I knew going into the season, we've got a super competitive field in IndyCar this year. Like even the rookies are like some of the most experienced rookies that have come in, with Grosjean coming across from F1 for 10 years. Jimmy Johnson obviously is the big name, 7-time NASCAR Cup champion, and Scott McLaughlin as well, a 3-time supercar champion. So just the rookies were competitive, but yeah, no wins for Team Penske, who are the big guys within the series so far. So that's the big shock. And a surprise that Alexander Rossi has been a little bit off the pace as well. But the young guns have kind of shone so far this season. It's been superb to see.
Yeah, as you mentioned, 5 different winners, 5 different races, similar to way NASCAR is right now, where there's a lot of different winners currently, and it's interesting how that works from time to time. And you said the last 5 years, it's been kind of, it's been kind of hit and miss, and there's been a lot of different type of winners in different races. Is that normal or?
I think IndyCar is a super competitive series. So the cars they're not spec. But they all have the same chassis, which is Dallara. They've got the 2 engine manufacturers between Honda and Chevy, but they're fairly close. So it means that, gaps between the fields are fairly competitive through there. Obviously, like in anything, you have your kind of big teams like the Team Penske's, the Chip Ganassi's, the Andretti Autosports. But yeah, even within those teams, they're stacked with 4 or 3 great drivers, each of them, and they kind of share it out. But also the other guys in the Rahal Letterman, Lanigan racing teams, the Ed Carpenters, Dale Coynes, if they get it right on their day, they can also win as well. So yeah, it's been a super competitive series. And I think the championship for the last 15 years went down to the last race. So that's superb for the series.
You just mentioned Alexander Rossi, and he's really popular in a lot of people know who Rossi is. Why do you think he's struggling this season?
The man just can't catch a break. When there's just things in sport that you go, things conspiring against me. I mean, some of it has been driver error, but quite a lot of things have just been out of control. I'll give an example: the Texas race 2 that he was at. He was involved in a crash at the start. Completely not his fault. Someone took him out, and he's going, this just sums up my luck and everything. But maybe it was a turning corner, the last Indy GP. A P7 isn't exactly the headline grabber, but considering how his start of this season has gone and last season went for him, maybe it's a step in the right direction. And he's so strong at Indianapolis, you can never count him out in the Indy 500.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would want to see Alexander Rossi somewhere in there and get another Indy 500 win. So speaking of the Indy 500, who do you think is the favorite to win and why?
Favorite to win. I mean, this race, there are so many competitive cars in there. Look, Scott Dixon and the Hondas look quick. The Honda, for some reason, probably looks the quickest of the 2 engines, but where Chevy might come into play is their fuel mileage does look better. I think that's what the benefit came in, especially on the second race at Texas. The fuel mileage for the Chevys certainly played a big part in there. So Scott Dixon and Takuma Sato, obviously last winner Takuma Sato from last year, looks quick in practice. Scott Dixon just, man, he has got a really good package together with that Honda, and he's a 6-time series champion, and he's only won the Indy 500 once. So I think he's really hungry to kind of put another one to his name. So those are probably the guys you're going from a kind of Chevy point of view. Will Power is looking quick. It's hard to rule out a Team Penske. I mean, they quite comfortably have won more Indy 500s as a team throughout history than anybody else. So I suppose if you were having to put money on it, you'd back those guys. But man, if someone puts it together, you don't know. It could be anyone. Qualifying is going to be interesting this weekend for sure.
I saw a little bit of the betting line. I think Joseph Newgarden was also in there. What chance would you give him to win this year's Indy 500?
I would love to see Joseph Newgarden win, but it's just something that's kind of eluded him, the Indy 500. He's a two-time series champion as well, one in his rookie season, not his rookie season, but his first season with Team Penske, the championship. He's okay. He's good at Indianapolis, but I don't know if he's necessarily been too strong there. His best finish has been third, I think, 2016 with Ed Carpenter Racing. So he hasn't historically, compared to, like we said, Alexander Rossi always seems to be in the mix for a win. Joseph, I can't really remember any off the top of my head of him being in the mix for a win for the race, but he's such a good driver. It seems crazy that he hasn't won the Indy 500 yet. And yeah, it may be his year this year.
It'd definitely be exciting. What about a guy like Jimmy Johnson? I was a huge fan of him when he was in NASCAR. I don't think he's going to win. But what chances, or where do you think he'll finish and why?
So he actually isn't racing this year's Indy 500. He'll be part of the coverage. So obviously coming across from NASCAR, the difference between single seaters and obviously the stock cars in NASCAR, I think the braking and how you enter the corners is a lot different. And he's obviously still trying to get up to scratch on that. And not being a spring chicken anymore at 45 years old, I think he's having a look this year. But I think we'll see Jimmy in it next year. But if he was in it, I think, chances of any sort of win would be rather slim at the moment. He really is finding his seat. I've got to give credit to the guy because it's such a hard transition that he's made. And at 45 years, an absolute NASCAR legend, he could have just hung up his kind of racing gloves and said, you know what, I'll just go around and do all the media stuff. But no, fair play to him. He wants to carry on racing.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how far he can go with this. I think I'm definitely excited. I think a lot of people are. Let's go back to the season so far. What rookie has been the most impressive in your opinion?
Now it'll be between Scott McLaughlin and Roman Grosjean for this one. Scott McLaughlin is the only kind of full-time entry rookie because he's doing all the ovals. So he's doing the Indy 500. He did the 2 Texas rounds and he'll do Gateway as well. And obviously Jimmy Johnson and Grosjean are doing no ovals this year, although both or one of may enter Gateway, but I think that's up in the air. But so far, Scott McLaughlin got a P2 in Texas Race 1, making it a Kiwi 1-2 as Dixon won that race. That was very impressive, especially his first performance on an oval in a race, because he had a couple of street courses and road courses before that. So that was a really impressive. And he's just been solid with Team Penske in there or thereabouts. And considering the team hasn't won a race this year, I think he's been very impressive, but it probably has to go to Roman Grosjean, to be fair. For Dale Coyne, one of the kind of smaller teams within it, but, they try hard. They don't have the budgets of the kind of the big teams. He got a pole position last time out, the Indy GP, and finished P2 in the race. And coming across from Formula One, although he probably has the best skill set compared to Jimmy and Scott McLaughlin, it was incredibly impressive performance what he did for Dale Coyne. So I'm going to back Grosjean for this one.
Where do you think he'll finish this week? Or did he qualify for the Indy 500 this week?
So Roman Grosjean's another guy that has opted out of it because, again, similar sort of thing. He's got a family like Jimmy Johnson, cited the reasons, just going, they want to bed themselves into the series before committing to driving 220 plus mile an hour around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where, any mistake can, end up in quite a serious injury, even with the safety, steps that we've taken in modern day IndyCar.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's definitely going to be a fun race to watch this year. What are you looking forward to most this season about the Indy 500? I think there's going to be fans. There wasn't fans last year, but what really are you looking forward to this year for one of the biggest races in the world?
Oh man, it is the greatest spectacle in racing. That's always what it kind of brands and stuff. It's always just such an amazing, exciting event. There is no motorsport event right now. Currently, I've said before, I think Le Mans has just kind of dropped off, in the last few years, especially not having competitive at the front. I think Indianapolis 500 is the biggest one in the world event, and that just makes it so exciting. Someone can become a legend or enhance their legacy by winning the race. Next Sunday is usually chaos. There's lots of overtakes. It's exciting. You pretty much most of the time you don't know what the outcome is going to be until that final stint of pit stops come through, and even then a late caution can change everything. I mean, last year's race ended under caution, so I'm hoping this year we're green all the way to the end, and we got an exciting close finish between whoever it is in the field.
Speaking of last year, Takuma Sato, he got his second win at Indy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's a good chance? I think I saw a little bit earlier today, but do you think there's a chance he gets his third win at Indy this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Takuma Sato over the past couple of years has really developed into a guy who's lightning quick on the ovals, and he really seems to have kind of adapted well to it now. Obviously, traditionally coming from a European / continental background of traditional road course racer, he's finally clicked. Indy 500 is his best track as well. He's looked quick in practice so far. Obviously, you can't take too much from practice because everyone's running different programs, toe times, non-toe times. It kind of distorts things a little bit, but he looks like he's got pace there, and he's got a good chance, if any, to make it back-to-back wins.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch. I think last year was a crazy race, and to be able to win on the last lap or whatever was very, very incredible. I think I've already mentioned this, but who do you like this week I think you mentioned a little bit, or who do you like the most to win this week?
Oh, it's a tough one. It is a tough one because I kind of got a soft spot for all of them. I'm amazed by the quality of drivers in their field, and I can't knock anyone in goes. Obviously, being a British guy as well, Jack Harvey for me has been one of the drivers so far this season for Meyershank Racing, a team who've developed and built over the past few years, going from a part-time team into a full-time team for the past couple of seasons. So it would be superb to do well. And I'd love to see Joseph Newgarden do it because he's such a great driver for the series. He's such a great personality as well. The Indy 500 is all he kind of needs to kind of complete that package of, asserting himself as one of the modern day greats in the sport.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm super excited for this, or I guess it's next week, but I'm super excited. Can't wait. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting that you would want to mention about this year's Indy 500?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, man. I think we've covered it all in terms of, well, obviously we've got, I'm not sure when this goes out. We might have had qualifying and bump day when it comes out. It's exciting that bump day returns. There's going to be obviously two guys who miss out on or girls, because Simona De Silvestro for Pareto Autosport, that team coming in as Indy 500 only. One, which is great to see a female racer back at the Indy 500 again this year. But it's such a super competitive field. Who's going to miss out? Who's going to get that pole position? And man, race day is just such a big event. It's the month of May is just so special for any racing fan, I think, who's an IndyCar fan.
Yeah, Indy 500, even if you're not a super big Indy 500 fan, you always seem to want to watch it around this time, and it's a very fun, one of the funnest races to watch. Could you tell us more about your podcast before we end the interview?
Absolutely, yeah. So basically, we release, usually this month's a bit busy because we got more to talk about in terms of 3 videos a week, but it's usually a kind of a Wednesday podcast with me and my brother Stephen, who's not here, he's away on holiday at the moment, but it's me and Stephen who do our podcast where we kind of round up the relevant stuff So all the latest, whether that be race reviews, previews, and stuff like that. And then obviously in closed season, just talk about relevant topics that are in the news at the time. And then we do feature videos, kind of looking at the history of the sport, as we kind of learning and improving our knowledge of the sport. We're kind of putting out feature videos, kind of that, whether that be legendary drivers coming out, whether that be just general history of the sport, notable moments in the sport's history. That's kind of what Indy Fanatics is all about.
All right. Thanks again for coming on, Mike. I'm assuming you can get your podcast on Apple Podcast and Spotify and most places, and YouTube as well.
YouTube is the main place, not yet. I'm useless in terms of uploading that. I may pick your brain actually for the best platforms to put it out on Apple and Spotify. But yeah, no, YouTube is our main platform at the moment because us mugs like to put ourselves on camera and everything on that. But yeah, JJ, thank you so much for having me, man. Really enjoyed the chat.
Yep, really pleasure talking Indy 500 with you. I'm excited. I can't wait for it. This, I guess it's next week. I keep on forgetting, but definitely excited. Thanks for coming on, and I would love to have you in the future as well.
Absolutely, man. Loved it.
All right, don't forget to check out his podcast. You can also follow him on Instagram at Indy Fanatics. All right, thanks for coming on, Mike.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Down Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Down Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.